Sarah Jory is an iconic British pedal steel guitar player. In her work with the likes of Morrison, Eric Clapton, Cyndi Lauper and Glen Campbell, to name but a few, Sarah has put her own unique sound into the pedal steel guitar, developing new techniques and introducing the instrument to a new generation of players, myself included. Please enjoy my interview with Sarah Jory. And that's why I want a Franklin pedal, but we'll get to that later. Sarah, thanks so much for doing this. It's a real great pleasure for me to have you on the channel. We'll get to a little bit more about your career in a little while, but I want to ask you a little bit about where we are now as pedal steel players. The instrument's gone through quite a lot of different stages. What is your take on where we're at with the pedal steel now?
My big passion is country music. That's what I cut my teeth on. That's what I learnt to play first off, and tried to emulate all those years ago. But I think in order for the instrument to survive, and it is about survival, it has to embrace other genres of music. We as steel players grab the chance to work on different projects that aren't, in inverted commas, country, but can show the instrument for the beauty that it has. I have been fortunate enough to do stuff that would be classed as outside the box. Yeah. So stuff that I've recorded with Royal Philharmonic, with the Halley Orchestra, with Cyndi Lauper, obviously my time with Van Morrison. All that stuff was outside of the country genre that people instantly seem to attach the steel guitar to. And I understand why, because it has that iconic sound and it's been around for so many years. But if we want it to survive, we need to be able to have those, what's that I can hear on that? Well, that must be a pedal steel. We have to have those things on mainstream music. Now, it has been happening for a long time. I mean, BJ Cole, all the stuff that he played on Paul Young's, Every Time You Go Away and all that sort of stuff, the stuff that Lloyd Green did with Paul McCartney and Wings. It has happened, but we have to keep doing that. It can't just be these little steps in the water and then disappear again. We were listening to some stuff earlier. You played with Liam Gallagher. And, as a steel player, I knew instantly that it was a pedal steel, but probably what I would class as normal people, because let's face it, we musicians are not normal, no. But normal people listening to that stuff will go, that's an interesting sound, but might not associate it with a pedal steel unless they visually see it. I became a better interpreter of the song and what was needed in the song during my time with Van Morrison. Because prior to joining Van, I had been a front person and I'd been playing acoustic guitar, slide, pedal steel, singing, all that. And then suddenly I became a musician in a band, finding my place. That taught me an awful lot. Taught me about colours, layers, the few harmonics or the eBow part or something that you play a chord is what makes the difference on the song.
That's absolutely. Can we, I think while we're talking about this, let's actually explain the eBow.
It's like my little surprise tool. If I'm working with somebody for the first time, and especially if they're going down the ballad route, I think, that might work. And I get this out, and very often it's stopped a vocalist in their tracks because they're not, what's that we're hearing? And they're totally taken off guard. It's an electronic bow, and we're not trying to take away any work from the violinist.
No, this is not a new thing. It's not a pedal steel exclusive thing either.
It's not. Well, it was originally guitarist, wasn't it? Because they used to be metal. Yeah. If I remember rightly.
They've certainly been around a long time. I don't know the history of them.
Well, the first time I saw this being used was Buddy Emmons used it on Mansion on the Hill, which is the old Hank Williams.
Yes.
Yeah, so... in a mix, it's really, really nice. I mean, obviously, if you move it up over the... May have fitted in with a bit of Zappa stuff back in the day, you know.
Yeah, and do you usually? It has two modes.
Yes.
Do you use both modes?
Yes, I tend to use the lower mode.
Yes.
Because it's a bit warmer. The high mode sometimes, for me, certainly with artists that I use it with, can sometimes get in the way of the vocal.
Yes.
And I try and stay out of the way, obviously, of the vocal,
yes.
you know, and be more of an accompaniment rather
yes.
than an annoyance.
That's the role of this instrument, really, isn't it? It's a very lyrical instrument.
Yeah.
It's a fretless instrument, but we also have lots of ways of changing the sound. You've got 10 strings.
Yes.
And even that doesn't make a lot of sense. The first 8 strings make more sense. Can we go over that first?
So you've got this. It would be classed as a standard pedal steel E9 tuning with 10 strings, and the strings are tuned to B, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, B, E, G sharp, D sharp, F sharp. So your chord, your E chord, your standard E chord on an acoustic guitar would be strings 10, 8, 6, 5, 4, and 3. So that's your open E chord, no hands, no bar, no nothing. Now we come on to the pedals, which on this particular model I have 4. My pedals raise and lower certain strings, but I also have 5 knee levers. I have a left knee going left, which lowers 2 E strings. I have a left knee going right that raises 2 E strings. I have a left knee going up, which lowers my 2 B strings. I have a right knee going left, which raises my 2 F sharp strings. And then I have what we call a double stop on a right knee going right, and that is a D sharp to D to C sharp, but only on my 2nd string. Now I've totally lost you, or you're in a complete state of boredom. I will try and explain what that means. My pedals, mine go A, B, C, and D. I play slightly differently. We were having this conversation earlier. Scott's pedal steel is set up differently to mine. I play the way I learned, because my very first pedal steel was put together by an English gentleman, and it was kind of set up a little bit wrong. So that's why my setup doesn't make an awful lot of sense to proper steel players.
It's what might be deemed the day setup as far as your pedals go.
As far as my pedals are concerned, but not on
but
my
not
knee
your knee
levers.
levers. They're more like the Emmons setup that I have, which is, yeah.
Exactly, yeah. So it's a little bit weird, but it makes complete sense to me. So to explain what the pedals and knee levers do, I hit an open E chord, which is there. If I want to go to the 4 chord, which is the A chord, I would press pedals A and B, which raise my B string and my G sharp string. And then if I want to go to the B chord, which is the 5 chord, I would roll my foot off pedal A and go left knee, left. So without any hands or doing anything else, I can go. And that is kind of the generalised setup of the instrument, isn't it?
That's the essence of what the steel guitar is.
Essence, that's the word I was after.
So you have your A, B, and C pedals. Yeah. So the B and C pedals move up a minor second, don't they? Yeah.
So if you're in G and you want the 6 minor, which would be the E minor, you would just press pedal A. And then the 4 chord. And then the 5 chord. And then the 2 minor would be on your pedals, B and C.
Yeah.
And then I have the little, which is my little, call it the Franklin pedal. He wants one.
I want one.
He wants one.
The other thing that we do as steel players is we use a volume pedal. all the time. And can you explain why we use a volume pedal?
The volume pedal is definitely the expression tool. We'll take something really classic, say something like Mansion on the Hill, the first part of Mansion on the Hill, the Hank Williams song. If I play that without using my volume pedal and just set it, I would set it there. So this is no volume pedal, this is just picks, bar, and obviously altering the pedals, the notation on the pedals and the levers. So which sounds a little bit laboured, a little bit.
It's very immediate.
It is.
It's not a bad thing. I mean, you play lovely and in tune, but it doesn't have much expression. It's a very flat sound.
It doesn't. So you incorporate the volume pedal into that. And it becomes the tool that takes out all that unnecessary string noise, the unnecessary noise sliding between frets, any pick noise that you might have. The volume pedal eliminates all that, because it's one of the hardest things, I think, personally, to get to grips with as a pedal steel player, is that ability to be able to back off your volume pedal before you play a string. Now, obviously, if you're playing something like Nervous Breakdown or whatever, something fast, you can't do that.
No.
But it's not really a necessity. But in a ballad and in something slow, making it nice and smooth and not like feels like you're on kind of a bit of a bit of a wave machine.
If you're enjoying this video, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel and ring the bell icon, because it's the best way to support the channel and allows me to make more videos like this. Please like the video, leave a note in the comments, who would you like me to interview next? And if you'd like to support the channel further, please check out the super thanks function below. Back to the video.
A few years ago, I moved to the Telonix active pedal.
Yes.
I mean, I played pot pedals for years.
Yes.
And my last pot pedal was not even anything to do with the pedal steel. It was more of a guitarist pot pedal. And it was great because it kind of gave me that sort of boost, that edge. But then when I tried the Telonix, I just fell in love with it because it's very smooth. And also you can choose your tapers on it. I mean, my taper is, so when it's backed off, it's not completely silent. And then as I increase it, the volume increases. And there's some tapers on there that as it increases and then it tapers off at the end.
You're also using the Telonix amplifier as well, aren't you? Which works
I do.
Great.
On live gigs. I mean, that can sometimes be a little bit tricky, doing European gigs and festival gigs and that, because Telonix have definitely developed this amazing steel guitar amp and setup. But unfortunately, it's not widely available as far as we know. You put your spec through what you want, you put a basic requirement through what you need for a gig, for a festival in Poland or France or wherever. And 9 times out of 10, they're not going to be able to get hold of exactly what you're after. So
no, it's a very customised amplification system, isn't it, the Telonix?
So as backup to that, I've been a PV endorsee as well for a lot of years.
Yes.
I mean, I bought PV long before they were gracious enough to start giving me products to use, guitars and amps and stuff. So that's kind of, I have the PV set up there as well. And then if all that fails and there's none of that available, then I have a really good preamp DI that I just take with me and I run it back and I have it through monitors, have it through foldback.
We were talking about in-ear monitors versus regular monitoring systems and the implications of that with the pedal steel. Because
the steel guitar dynamically can very much operate around where the vocal is. And obviously, if you're backing up somebody, you need to hear the vocal, you need to hear what the vocalist is doing. So it can sometimes get a little bit swamped. I have been lucky in the fact that the monitor engineers that I've worked with have been very astute when it comes to my steel sound. They run me a flat EQ mix through the ears, but I also have a floor wedge. It's very much about feel and dynamics for me. And I totally understand the modern way of working things. Of course I do. You know, when you do TV and stuff like that, you know, you have to be on in ears because you have to hear cues. And if you're working with an artist who uses a lot of sequencing or sampling or stuff on track, then I completely understand why that's important. We were having this discussion about, you know, the ambient mics and that you can have actually you don't, because I said I wouldn't want to lose that vibe of just the audience. But it's not just the audience, it's the dynamics of the band.
Yeah, it's the dynamics of the band, but also the steel has such a wide frequency range.
Yeah.
It's quite difficult to represent that. And the dynamic content in even, like I use Cosmic Ears are amazing, but even with a really high quality system like that, it doesn't sound the same as the steel coming from the amplifier.
I think it very much depends as well on the artist that you're playing for. If you're playing for somebody that most of what you're doing is chord work or single notes or stuff like that, it probably wouldn't be such an issue and it wouldn't get so lost in a mix. But if it's more about you soloing and stuff like that, you need to have that headway. You need to be able to push through and hear what you're playing, not only for performance, but for pitch and everything. So I think that's where either a floor monitor or having your amp or some kind of response, you know, live response needs to be there.
It's a very traditional approach. It's almost that orchestral approach of being a really dynamic musician.
It is.
Where did you start out playing pedal steel guitar generally?
Completely by accident. I went to a convent school from the age of 3.5 and absolutely loved my music lessons. And Mum and Dad had a great love of music, so I grew up listening to very traditional country artists, Don Williams, Hank Williams, Patsy Cline, Tammy Wynette, George Jones. That's what I kind of cut my teeth on, alongside people like Frank Sinatra, who my dad was into. And so it was a little bit eclectic, but definitely more so towards the country music side. So at a parents' evening, I hadn't even hit 5 years old, I think, and the music teacher said to my mum and dad, you know, you really should try and encourage her in music because she comes alive in the music lessons. You know, she absolutely loves it. And mum and dad were like, oh gosh, what do we do? You know, there's no music in my family or anything. On a Saturday morning trip with my dad up to a music shop in 4th Street Hill in Exeter called Bill Greenhill's. If my dad was alive, bless him, he would tell the story to this day. He said, we went through the doors of the music shop, he said, and you had all the woodwind and violins and recorders and everything, all down this side, and all your glass cabinets, you know, filled with all your bits and bobs and everything. And there was a little door halfway down on the left-hand side that took you into the guitar department. And in the corner was a 6-string diatone Hawaiian lap steel, tuned to A6. So I took it home. My dad cut the legs off an old coffee table, and he was a sales rep for Coca-Cola at the time. So he, you know, we had loads and loads of empty fruit juice cases and Coke bottle cases and stuff. So you turned 2 of those upside down with a cushion, and that was my seat. I just wanted to play. I just felt a connection with that guitar. And then I moved on to an 8-string Hawaiian steel. And then I had my first pedal steel when I was 9 years old. But it was a second-hand one made by a guy in Southampton, and it was set up wrong, which is why, as we discussed earlier, my setup is a little bit
why you bizarre. Have your copedance, the arrangement of pedals
exactly,
and nearly
because that's what I got used to.
It was Lloyd Green that was the first person that showed you a pedal steel.
Yes, yeah. Yeah,
that's quite an experience to have.
I know. I was 7 years old. Mum and Dad were big Don Williams fans, and he was playing at the Princess Theatre in Torquay. We went to the show, and at the time I was still playing my Hawaiian steel, and I sat there mesmerised by this guy on stage playing this. And even at that age, I could still work out that, well, that's quite similar to what I'm playing, but he's got more things going on. We went round to backstage, and Don Williams had already left. Lloyd Green came out, and my dad just stopped him. He was very gracious. He still is. He's a wonderfully gracious man. My dad said to him, you know, excuse me, sir. He said, could we ask you what's the name of the instrument that you're playing? He said, because my daughter's really fascinated. She plays Hawaiian steel, but... So Lloyd said, he said, that's a pedal steel guitar. And he said, if she's playing Hawaiian steel, you know, she'll probably... go on to pedal steel. He said that's usually what happens. So fast forward many, many years, 13, and I get invited to go to Scotty's big international steel guitar convention in St. Louis. So I played on the talent search on the Thursday night, and it went very well. Then Buddy Emmons asked if I would join him on his set on the Sunday at the end of the convention. That was a massive, massive honour.
Buddy Emmons is, to us pedal steel players, basically developed.
He developed
all
pedal
of,
steel and that whole jazz genre, and just taking the steel guitar out of the ballpark and putting it in other areas. And he was an entertainer. That was the thing about him. And he was somebody that we all looked up to, and he was just this amazing man. Coming off stage, we felt this guy sort of stood next to us, looking at us. I looked over and it was Lloyd Green. He said, I really enjoyed Sarah's playing. He said, but can I ask you a question? We were at this place, he said, I think it was Torquay or something like that. He said, and he said, after the show, he said, this guy, he said, and his little daughter, he said, came and spoke to me and asked me the name of the instrument that I was playing. He said, and I spoke to them. He said, I have to ask. He said, would that have been you and Sarah? My dad said, yes. He said, it was. Wow. It was. And he gave me, he said, I have something to give Sarah. And this was made for him. There's a little pick bag and it's got LG on it. And he said, I want Sarah to have that. He said, she can carry her picks and bar and everything in it. And that has been on every single gig with me since I was 13. Wow. And that travels in my hand luggage when I fly. And I've been to Lloyd's house and had some one-to-one time with him like we've had. Yes. And the same with Buddy. And I found that all the Americans from like day one, all the American players were so gracious in embracing me into the fold. It was a freaky thing. Whichever way you look at it, it was a very freaky thing for a young girl from Devon in England to be playing a pedal.
Well, it's unusual for a woman to play steel guitar. I mean, there's Cindy Cashdollar that I know of who plays mainly lap steels and dobros.
Donna Hammett. And Donna and I used to play the conventions when we were kids, and the Mandrell sisters, and they had the big TV thing and everything.
And you had your own band for a long time, didn't you, as well? That was the other thing. I mean, you toured extensively playing steel, playing acoustic guitar and singing and fronting a band. Yeah. Steel players quite often are the side guy mentality or the side to the main artist. How did that transition work for you at the time? How did you feel about that?
You know, I wanted to work in the music business, and back at that time, there wasn't enough work just to be a steel player. So I had to develop other strings to my bow, pardon the pun. And of course, at that time, you had all this wave of like new country stuff coming through. You know, you had your Mary Shaping Carpenters, the Judds, new country stuff. And bands that I looked up to were the likes of British bands like Kenny Johnson, North Wind, the Hillsiders, Tammy Klein and Southern Comfort. And I was a massive Emmylou Harris fan. And the Hot Band and with Albert Lee and, and Dan Dugmore and all the rest of it. And I thought, right, look, that's what I want to do. So, of course, I ended up putting the band on the road. And when I signed my first record deal at 21, it was as a vocalist, and the instrumentation side of me became very much secondary.
You went off to work for Van Morrison, but you've worked for loads of big artists.
I have been very lucky. I've toured with Glen Campbell. That was an amazing experience, just because he was so musical. Like the guy just lived and breathed music. Yeah, Kenny Rogers, Charlie Pride, Eric Clapton, Phil Collins, Cyndi Lauper, Van Morrison, Royal Philharmonic, Halley. It's been a great ride. Hasn't made me wealthy, but it's made me very rich.
You've been a woman in the music industry. Before that was a thing that people talked about, or certainly didn't talk about enough at the time. The steel guitar community is a very male-dominated thing as well. How did you go about that? Was it just out of necessity, needing to work and build the career?
Yeah, absolutely. I had such strong parents. We went into this completely blind. My mum and dad didn't have a clue about the industry, about the business. I didn't have a clue about the business. I just knew I wanted to play this instrument. And my mum and dad worked for me. And we used to travel, and we were a unit. My dad was so trustworthy, and everyone trusted him. We didn't have emails and Facebook and text messages, and I can remember when we first had a fax machine. It was like, oh my God,
it was verbal contracts,
exactly, and a shake of a hand.
Yes.
But we never didn't turn up to anything. We never didn't turn up to a gig. And the work ethic that he installed in me was just you just keep at it. You just keep going. So if there were misogynistic tendencies towards what I was doing, without this sounding like me being somebody who was totally thick and blasé about it, I don't honestly think I was made aware of that initially, because I was just concentrating on what I was doing. And it probably existed. I mean, I know, the music industry, the steel guitar world, yes, is very, very male dominated. The music industry at that time, hugely male dominated. And there probably were times when, now looking back, I can look at that and go, oh yeah, that probably was what you would now call a little bit of sexism. But I just didn't see it at the time. I just kept my head down and just kept working.
You've played with all these incredible artists. How did you find yourself at that point? And what would you say to younger players wanting to get to that point where they're able to work with people?
I think controlling your fear of the unknown is a massive thing. The anxiety of the I'm not good enough to do that.
Yes.
Dealing with that is a huge thing. As a musician, as an artist, say yes first and then worry about how you're going to do it afterwards. Because out of that, how am I going to do this, becomes a way of actually dealing with it.
Very much so.
Yeah. And I think for young players today, the world that we live in now, which is judged by picking up a phone or a tablet and seeing how many people like us, I think is quite scary for somebody wanting to get into the music business. Because at the end of the day, we are judged by what we do on stage. Our 6-month appraisal, our boss's pat on the back is every 3.5 minutes or 4 minutes, because it is about the connection with the audience at the end of the day. It's not about a phone screen, not about a TV screen. It's about that hitting somebody right here where they feel it, emotive-wise. When you could do that with an audience, the rest of it will come. If you can't make your music touch somebody and make them think, oh my God, shed a little tear, smile, whatever. If you can't have that, you won't have longevity in the business.
You have to have that business acumen if you're going to do this regularly as well, don't you? At
Yes,
least
you
to
do.
a point.
You do. And it's not easy.
No.
My God, it really isn't easy. We put everything out there for our audiences and for the people who hopefully like our music and want to follow us. But when that's all gone, we're still human beings. We still go through exactly the same things, as everyone else does. Hurt, heartache, loss, ill health, everything. But it's just how we manage all that against having then the business head and being an entertainer at the same time.
Absolutely.
It's quite a lot of plates to spin. 50 years on, I'm still here and I'm still sat behind an instrument that I adore, and I still want to make music and I still want to be creative. So I think that says something.
You're an entertainer as well as a pedal steel player. Now, you talk about Buddy Emmons doing that. There's a lot of steel players out there that are amazing musicians, but they are not entertaining shy of entertaining for us who will appreciate what knee lever movement they'll have done.
Yeah.
You can tell you're into the music, but you're also able to communicate to the audience. Where did you learn to do that? Where did that come across?
I have no idea.
No.
I seriously have no idea. I just know that it's all born out of just a sheer annoying love of music. And I say annoying because I must have annoyed so many people that I've been around over the years. It's like, oh, really? Do you have to be so happy, so upbeat, so positive? But it's just, I just love music. I love being around musicians. I love being around creative people, and when it's like that gut feeling inside you when you're on stage, and you don't even have to be on stage. You can be in an environment when you're all sat around on a tour bus with some acoustic guitars and harmonies and stuff, and you just get that, oh my God, what just happened there type of moment, and no money in the bank pays for that. You're experiencing something. You're so lucky to be able to feel that. So I've been playing Mullen now for 7 years, and I use the George L E66 pickups in it. And my normal gig setup is the guitar that you see. I use a Telonics active pedal. I'm running from the guitar into the pedal. Out of the pedal, I'm using a Boss digital DD3, and I've been using that for more years than I can
You had a delay
remember.
pedal,
Yeah. I never use reverb on an amplifier. It's not to everyone's taste, but for me personally, I control everything.
Oh, that's really interesting, because I've always used a relatively high amount of reverb.
Yeah. I have the DD3 here, and I like it close to hand because as I'm playing stuff, I can alter and tweak as I go along. And it comes out of the delay pedal and goes straight into the amp, which is either my Telonics, which is the setup that I have here, and then I've also got a PV Nashville 112.
You're using a Peterson tuner that we, as steel players, I mean, they're the only tuner that really works, isn't it?
Especially, there's a sweetener on the new one, on the Ice Strobes, which is an Emin sweetener, and it's I have to say, it's the only one I completely trust, because you know yourself, sometimes if you're in an environment, so you're doing a live TV thing, and you've got to tune up and you can't hear, because I do everything by ear. So I'll tune up my 2Es and my 2Bs. That's my normal standard, on a normal gig. 2Es, 2Bs, and everything else I tune in with harmonics by ear. But if you're not able to do that, with the Peterson, with all the Peterson tuners, if you put the Emin sweetener on it, you can tune in every single string.
And it comes out. Because if you use a Boss tuner, for instance, there's nothing wrong with Boss tuners. I use them all the time on guitars.
No.
But on a steel, the guitar will be out of tune, because it's like a piano, isn't it?
Yeah.
Exactly. And also, with a steel, and this is not necessarily rig-based, but we also tune our pedal movements and our knee lever movements, don't we?
Yes, we do.
Can you just show that for people who...
So normally I would do... So there, that's my... Lovely, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a great sound, yeah.
So, and then if I'm tuning in my pedals, so... Okay, I can hear... My G sharp is just slightly flat. So I go from here, have the little Allen key into these little rods at the end, and you can hear this. Here, that's completely out. And it's like angels coming through the clouds when it just...
Yeah.
Beautiful. Even though I say so myself. That's how it works with the knee levers as well, so... And you should all return. Lovely. Yes. Yes.
The other thing that fascinates me about your rig is you use... Obviously, we all use metal finger picks, but you use a metal thumb pick as well.
I do.
Why do you use a metal thumb pick?
Initially, that was because I was continuously breaking plastic thumb picks.
Yeah, they get hot as well and change shape on me, which annoys the hell out of me.
And I'm not the softest of players.
Yeah, you're quite a hard picker.
I am. And I was messing around with the banjo, and I had the metal picks on, metal thumb pick, and my standard 2 finger picks. And I just flipped to the steel, literally by accident, to play something. Thought, oh, hello. I liked the clarity that it gave, but also the fact that I could really lay into it and have the instant response that I just wasn't getting with a plastic pick. So that's over 20 years ago.
They're national finger picks, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. It's a Dunlop and national finger picks.
And you're using the BJS bars?
I am.
Yeah.
Yes, I've been with them for a long, long time. I love the tone, I love the feel of them. I don't even have to think about that bar.
No, absolutely.
A lot of steel players would hold their bar between these 2 fingers, but I can't do that. I have to have my finger there, I have to have it raised. And that's just how I've got used to using it.
You're also blocking behind the bar, aren't you,
Yeah.
with your hand?
Yeah, because if you didn't, you'd have... Whereas... alters the tone immediately by just dampening those strings slightly.
Yes, and you're blocking as well with your right hand as well, aren't you? You're blocking strings.
I do. Now, whether that's pick blocking or... because this is something that you were amazed at yesterday, was the fact that I play with that finger tucked under.
Yes.
Now, that was something that I was told to do when I was a child, and which is great for... which is great for when you're palm blocking.
Yeah, and so what that means is you're usually stopping the strings with your finger after every hit.
And if that one doesn't get it, that one will.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's kind of like a double whammy. But then, of course, if you're pick blocking, which is exactly what it says on the tin, which is blocking the string that you've just played with the pick that is free. So that's all pick blocking. That's not palm blocking. But that, which is a great, great technique too, which you're very, very good at, I have to say. Which gives a very clean sound. Yeah, and I would say that the palm blocking would definitely be more towards the traditional, like, sort of 30, 40 years ago playing the steel, and obviously with, Paul Franklin and such players and that coming along, developing all the pick blocking and everything, has made speed picking a lot easier and a lot cleaner, a lot more responsive. So I try and do a mixture of both with my playing.
Where did you get into online recording, and how have you found that? How's that affected your business?
When we first went into lockdown, I had a backup of sessions that I needed to get done. And prior to lockdown, I had an engineer that came in and basically sat where you sat, with a laptop, and I would sit here, we'd play the stuff and I'd record it.
Yeah.
And then he'd edit it down, send it off to the producers and that. So suddenly I have these recordings that I need to do, but you're not there anymore. I wake up in the morning sometimes at like 7, 8 o'clock in the morning, and I'm so inspired musically to play something, and I know I've got, like, on a particular session, I just come down, headphones in, and send it off. And it's brilliant to be able to do that. So it's brought the whole world, it's made the whole world a lot smaller. This is our job, this is our living, this is what pays our bills. Because our knowledge is not power. Our knowledge is something that we want to share with everybody. I look at my time in the business as my way now, if you like, of passing on the baton. I don't want to see this instrument die.
No.
I don't want to see it disappear. I don't want to see live music disappear. So whatever I can do to encourage others to do that, and if I can help that in any way, then, my job's been worthwhile.
100%. And continues to be worthwhile. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Well, Sarah, thank you, because this has been a real joy for me. A joy to meet you, a joy to hang out with you. And I would love it if you consider subscribing to my YouTube channel. Have you got a YouTube channel, Sarah?
I do, which I need to start, building up a little bit more, because I haven't really, it's been sat there and I haven't really done a lot with it.
We'll link that below. But thank you so much for watching. And of course, thanks to Sarah for doing this. There's lots of other pedal steel related content. There's some free lessons that I've put on my channel just to help people get started. Yeah. There's a whole playlist which I'll link and all that stuff. So thanks so much for watching, and we'll catch you very soon. Thank you, Sarah.
Definitely. God bless. Take care. Bye-bye.